my name's Lynn Patner, and I don't know if you saw my interview with Jack Canfield or not. That was my virgin YouTube, but now I'm here for my very first appearance on a YouTube channel, and this is pretty exciting. I have notes, so that I wanted to let you know that I do have notes. What we're going to do today is we're going to do episode 1. It's going to be on a word I think I made up. I'm not sure. I haven't never looked it up, but it's called WOUNDology. And basically, what do your wounds say about you? This has been a very interesting subject for me because I've been on this path for a long time. As you well know, it was 36 years awakening, and part of the awakening process was to be able to heal. And I had to heal first in order to assist others in healing. So all the lessons that I've learned, WOUNDology recently has been waving a red banner. Hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. And it showed up again right before I did that interview with Jack Canfield. So that's how insidious this wound can be. My wound is I'm not enough. Some people have wounds that say they're invisible. Some people have wounds that say they don't matter in life. All of us have some sort of wound that we receive between the ages of 3 and 8. Because part of my work ethics, not ethics, but part of the work I did was working for Children's Protective Services. In the process of that, I saw a lot of wounds that I didn't know were how they were manifesting at the time. If I had learned about this earlier, I think I could have done a better job working with children who were being abused. Because those wounds are very, very deep, and they sometimes, most of the time, need some therapist to go with them to get them out and make sure that they don't hold themselves responsible or accountable because they did nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong. And that is, I want to underscore that a lot because a lot of people have a very difficult time when they have been hurt. Either they've been sexually abused, or they have been neglected, or they have had physical abuse, or their parents have been alcoholics and drug addicts, and they're put on the back burner. So all of you that may be listening today, I want you to know that you are perfect, you are a unique being, you came here to do your own healing, and that part of your life, if that should be your life, is going to be with you until you get that you did absolutely nothing wrong. You just happen to be there. So I want you to know that, and I want you also to think about therapy if you're just a newbie at awakening to what happened with you. The rest of us have had wounds that started early. My wound, of course, started when I was 3 years old, or maybe it was 3 years old. I grew up in an apartment building on the south side of Chicago. I was the queen of the building. I had blonde curly hair, I had brown eyes, I wore little cute dresses, and I was a precocious little girl. All the people in the building were adults. I didn't have any friends. All I had was a bunch of adults to play with, and play they did. They played cards with me, we played games with me, anything I wanted I asked them to do, and they did. We played dress up with Aunt Peggy's beautiful bed jackets and fluffy slippers, and then it was time for me to go to nursery school. Wound coming up. I went to nursery school, Hyde Park School for Little Children. I could hardly wait for this. I walked in to absolutely a nursery school of paradise. They had those huge wooden blocks, the really big ones that you could build a house out of. They had easels with paints, they had Play-Doh, and oh my goodness, they had a dollhouse. The dollhouse was spectacular. They had bunk beds, they had babies, they had a refrigerator, they had a stove, they had a high chair. I could barely maintain my excitement as I raced into the dollhouse. And then I was ordering all the kids around. You do that, you do this, you do this. Nobody played with me. I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't have the tools to deal with it. And the teacher at the time, her name was Miss Jane, and I remember her. She was my first friend and only friend in nursery school. She did not go to teaching school. I don't think she has an education major because maybe she could help me out there. But you know when I found out about this wound, which is very interesting, I was in graduate school, and my professor, I was doing group therapy. And what the what my professor said, they gave an assignment, and the assignment was, what was your first group experience? I wrote about it. I even got an A on the paper. I uncovered my wound. Now, I was in my 40s, so that wound basically came with me from 3 years old on up. And if you remember, if you saw Jack Canfield and I doing the interview, you will know that he had the same wound. He wasn't enough. And what he did is he overcompensated. He did everything to the nth degree. He was basically an egomaniac, trying to get everything that he possibly could to get the notoriety at the time to make him feel like he was definitely worthwhile. So with that being said, I have clients that I work with now and I've worked with in the past that their whole life, if they really look at it, created around the wound. So how that works is very interesting. I can show you by my experiences. So here's my wound that I got at 3. I'm not enough. I go to camp. I go to overnight camp. I go to a boy and girl camp. I was incredibly excited. I could barely maintain my excitement until I got to the train. I didn't know anyone else that was going to this camp. All of my confidence slipped out and I started to cry. The next thing I knew, this man who was the head of the camp swooped me up and placed me in the car with a bunch of other girls my age, and there I was. Oh my God, I had to make friends. And I made friends, and we got to camp, and we were in a cabin, and it was great. And I was having a wonderful time, and every Saturday night, they would have a dance. The dance was at it was a place near the lake, and it was a big place. It was like a social hall, and we would have a dance. And one night, I'm standing there, and I danced with a couple of men, they were boys, and this guy comes over to me, and he says, would you like to dance? And I said, yes. And his name was Mike. And I was incredibly happy. And you know what? He walked me back to the halfway house, and he kissed me. Oh, I was 12 years old. I had my first kiss. I could hardly breathe. I ran back to the cabin from the halfway house and was ecstatic. This went on for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. It was an 8-week camp. I think it was the end of the 5th week after he kissed me, and I asked my mother to please send me a bra because now I was becoming a woman because I had my kisses, that all of a sudden he didn't talk to me. He dumped me. They use the word now, ghosted me. A 12-year-old had no idea what could I have done to make him drop me, not talk to me, not dance with me, not kiss me. Other guys danced with me, but it wasn't Mike. And all I did was went into a severe depression at 12 years old. 12 years old, trying to figure out, what did I do wrong? The wound is there. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not sexy enough. I'm not whatever enough. That was a wound that was creating my life, but I didn't know it. Then he asked me at the 5th week or the 6th week of camp if I would go to the cotillion with him. So I thought he'd like me again. And we went to the cotillion, and he walked me back to my cabin, and he kissed me, and everything was great. And then when I got on the train to go home, although he said he'd save a seat for me, he didn't. I can't tell you his last name. I can tell you where he lived. I had no phone number. He didn't ask anything about me. And I felt horrible. My first romance at 12 was very painful. And I can go through every other romance I had. Because of the wound, I always created something where I would call to me someone where I would not consider myself being enough. With girlfriends in high school, they were always prettier than I, richer than I, nicer than I. It is insidious to have these wounds. So what your wounds create is your life. And if you find out what wounds you have, and one day we will do a meditation on this because I think it's that important to take a look and see what these wounds are, just to become aware that you put them in a box. It's an unconscious box buried deep within you. And if you have patterns that keep showing up over and over again, that is because of a wound. If you fail at what you're doing and you're dating men that just don't care for you, they just use and abuse you basically, you have a wound that's causing that. Because if you believe you're not enough or you're not worthy, you're going to keep on calling to you experiences because they want you to heal. They meaning my guides, the angels, higher self, God, whatever you call it. Everybody in the universe wants you to heal, and they want you to heal for a very specific reason. They want you to heal because you are a unique being of love and light. Each and every one of you, born, is unique. There's something very special about you. And when you awaken to the possibilities that you are being listened to and heard by a universe that you never could imagine was materializing for you or even manifesting for you, it blows your mind. And it took me a long time to understand this. It really did. I'm telling you, 36 years of following my plan. I had to heal first, and when I healed, I could heal others. So whatever I did, I always took people with me. I had groups on top of groups. I worked with individuals. I taught, they listened, they taught me. It was phenomenal. So in your life, and all your lessons in your life are extremely important for you because they give you a roadmap of your blueprint and how your blueprint has been interfered with. So if you've been born to awaken to the possibilities that life's much bigger than anybody believed it to be, that you're born for a reason, and that it is a miraculous universe to assist you, and I will tell you how that works too. When you heal and you ask for assistance, you get it. It's saying a prayer like, I'll tell you about this one. This is a brand new experience I'm sharing with you that just happened recently. I wrote a book. The book doesn't have a title on it, but I wrote the book. I said to my guides, and I said to God, who I believe is this big ball of incredible loving energy, the universe, I just said out loud, I wrote the book because you told me to write the book. I wrote it. It's done. It's up to you now. What happened next was that I got an editor, a New York editor, who's very well known in the field. She liked my book. She didn't believe the stories, half of them, but she liked my book. And what she did is she had a friend who is a publisher. She's an agent and a publisher. And she sent the book over there. The publisher called me yesterday and said she wanted to publish my book. Those are miracles. I didn't do anything. I've just written the book. So all of you people that are with me on this podcast, you're going to get to see what happens when you blow your life or you blow whatever to God. Or, it's not even God. I'll give you another story, because this one you're going to relate to. You know about my wound. I'm not good enough, strong enough, pretty enough, any of the enoughs. But that's not what this is about. This is about a case I had in Children's Protective Services. I had a very serious child abuse case. There were 3 children in a one-bedroom home, studio apartment, with a mother who was mentally ill and a father who was a guard and carried a gun. One of my biggest fears when I started CPS was that I'd be killed on the job. I was already led to someone to make sure that that belief system didn't stay in place, because that would have manifested, because your thoughts create your reality, minus your woundology. So if you're wounded and your thoughts create your reality, voila. Thank God I didn't die on the job. So here's the last case I have in the year 2001. I'm retiring. It's a terrible case. The girls would go to school smelling like urine. There was cockroaches going all over, doing the boogaloo on the walls. The mother was absolutely crazy out of her mind. I had the case for a year and a half, and it was summertime, and that meant the kids weren't going to school. When they were in school, I had teachers that were really good, and they would report back to me. The 3 girls were also in therapy, which helped a lot, and they were getting friends. They were having friends, and they were in sports, and the girls were doing well. But driving home one night, I said, okay, I can take these girls out of home. I can remove them from their home and put them in a foster home. But I'm really afraid. I'm afraid of the mother because she's crazy, and the father has a gun, and I don't know what he can do. So this is the first time I ever did this. I'm driving home, I open my window, I take my palm like this. I said, God, and I'm not a religious person, so it's not like I'm a Mormon, Christian, Jew, whatever. I'm Jewish by faith, but by belief, by anything, but I'm not what you call religious. So I said, okay, God, you need to handle this case. It's too big for me, I'm afraid. And I went, I let it go. I get home, I look at the front seat of my car, and there's a feather on the passenger side. I didn't know how the feather got there. I walk in the house, and there's a phone call, and it's from a person I know that I've done work with who's a Native American. I tell her the story, I tell her about the feather, and she says to me, God's telling you to lighten up. So now it's become a game. Now I think this is great. So I go to work the next day, and I go in to see my supervisor, and I say, Joyce, this is what's happened. I've blown this case to God. I need some help. I need the police department to bring out the girls. She said, call them and see if they'll do it. Sure, they said fine. I then sent my family care worker out to get 3 backpacks, 3 changes of underwear, a new dress, some shoes, socks, a brush, a comb, and all the necessities plus teddy bears, and fill their backpacks. I then called Eddie, who was in charge of placing children. Now I want you to know that the Department of Social Services never places children together because you can never find a home for 2 children, 2 sibs, let alone 3. I said, Eddie, call me when you get the placement. An hour later, I swear to God, an hour later, Eddie calls me and says, you won't believe this, but there's a person who will take all 3 girls. And I said, thank you. Now by this time, everyone in my division, all the social workers knew what I had done, and I was absolutely turning somersaults. It was so exciting. The next day, the police went, they got the 3 girls. The parents were extremely cooperative due to the police being there, brought them to the police department. I took them to McDonald's for lunch with my family care worker, and they went to the new house. The new house had 3 little beds for the girls with matching comforters and pillows. They had a closet full of clothes for little girls, and they had toys. There was a dog there. There was a white picket fence around the house, and they lived on a street with trees and grass. The countertops were clean. The oldest child ran her hands smoothly on the countertop, not believing it, because in her house, the bathtub was filled with clothes. These kids went to school smelling. And it was like, oh my goodness, look at this. Look what happened. This is a miracle. And then I forgot about it. So every other time that I had a problem, I would look for help. And I'd say, okay, God, okay, Aaron, who's my guide, you need to come down and help me out here. And I always got what I needed. It's been an incredible ride. So tidying it up with the wounds of I'm not enough are so pervasive within me that I had to stop and say to myself, this is not true. This never was true. You are more than enough. You are a unique human being, and you've come here to do service. We are all here for the main purpose of bringing light, love, and compassion to this planet. Never underestimate yourself. You could not be turned in and tuned into this show right now, or have listened to any of this stuff I've ever done, if you are not one of us. And what I'm here to do is assist you in your growth. I would relish your questions if you have questions. and I know that you can post them back on the YouTube channel. So let me see if I covered everything. So here's the second question. What is the hardest lesson to learn in facing your wounds? The hardest lesson was realizing that I created my own reality with the wounds, and everything fell into place. All the times that I had felt less than or not enough of, I created those feelings. I created those instances where it proved me right. And just recently, this is fun too. Just recently, I was talking with a friend of mine who I met when I was 13 years old. I always looked at her. She was a beautiful girl. I always thought she was prettier, smarter, richer, kinder, everything better than me. And in our conversation, she told me how insecure she had been, how she didn't have self-esteem. And I said, well, the three of us, because there were three of us in this group, I said, we all pretty well sucked. None of us had self-esteem. And I said, this to me is an amazing thing. So wounds, WOUNDology, you all have it. Take a look. See what you can do. See what comes up for you. And the next time we meet, I want to do a meditation where we go back and take a look and see what is running your life. What is driving this car that's unconscious that you need to know about so that you can say, listen, sweetheart, you did the best you could. You are not the wound that you have projected on to the world about yourself. You are a beautiful being. You are a beautiful child. You didn't have the tools to deal with a lot of situations, but you are here for a very important reason, and we love you. So I'm sending you all out a hug today to tell you that I'm hugging your inner child and telling her or him that they are wonderful, and I'm so incredibly pleased to have met you. Have a really good weekend. Bye.